I used to work the evening shift at Rosewood Books, a small, independent bookstore tucked away in a quiet part of Seattle. It wasn't a big place, but it had a cozy charm, dim lighting, old wooden shelves, and the comforting scent of paper and coffee. I usually closed up around 9 p.m., making sure the shelves were tidy and the register was locked before heading out. That night, I was the last to leave. My co-worker Sarah had gone home an hour earlier, and the street outside was eerily silent. The bookstore was located near Pine Street, not too far from downtown, but late at night, the area felt deserted. The only sounds were the occasional passing car and the distant hum of the city. As I walked to my car, parked about a block away, I felt it, that strange, prickling sensation on the back of my neck, like someone was watching me. I glanced around, but there was no one nearby. Just the usual quiet of the empty sidewalk, the glow of streetlights stretching long shadows across the pavement. Then, I saw it. A black sedan, parked across the street. It was idling, its headlights off. The windows were tinted so I couldn't see who was inside. At first, I didn't think much of it. Maybe someone waiting for a friend or an Uber driver checking their phone. But as I got into my car, I noticed something unsettling. The sedan's engine revved softly, almost as if it was preparing to move. I tried to shake off the unease as I pulled out of my parking spot and started heading home. But after a few turns, I checked my rearview mirror. The black sedan was still there. At first, I told myself it was just a coincidence. Maybe they lived in the same direction. But then, at a red light, I decided to test something and I switched lanes at the last second. The sedan switched lanes too. A cold shiver ran down my spine. Then I turned onto a smaller street, hoping I was just imagining things. But the car followed, keeping a steady distance. I didn't want to go straight home. If someone was following me, I didn't want them knowing where I lived. So I decided to test them again. I pulled into a gas station on 5th Avenue and parked. The sedan drove past, disappearing into the night. I let out a breath of relief and thinking, maybe I was just overthinking. But then, just as I was about to leave the gas station, the sedan reappeared. It had been waiting and watching me. Then panic set in, and I pulled back onto the main road and drove toward the nearest police station on 12th Street. As I got closer, the car suddenly turned off onto a side street and vanished. That night, I barely slept. Every shadow outside my window, every sound made me jump. I convinced myself it was over. Maybe it was a prank, maybe it was nothing. But the next morning when I stepped outside to leave for work, I saw something that made my blood run cold. On my windshield was a single Polaroid picture. It was a picture of me from last night, sitting in my car at the gas station. There was no note, no message, just the photo. I called the police immediately, but they couldn't do much. The camera angle didn't capture the car's license plate. They told me to be careful, to change my routine. For weeks, I lived in fear, but I never saw the black sedan again. But sometimes I still feel it, that awful creeping sensation of being watched. And even now, years later, I still keep that Polaroid. A reminder that some nightmares don't end when you wake up. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to have a stalker. It always seemed like something that happened in movies or to other people, never to me. But the past few weeks had changed everything. It started with a feeling, a creeping sense of unease in my own apartment. I've lived here for 2 years, in a small but cozy third-floor unit with my cat, Juno. It's an old building, the kind where the pipes groan and the wooden floors creak, even when no one is walking on them. But lately, the noises seemed different, intentional, like someone was there when they shouldn't be. Then came the phone calls, always around midnight, always from an unknown number. At first, I assumed it was spam, but no one ever spoke, just breathing heavy. I tried blocking the number, but the calls kept coming from different ones. One night, exhausted and fed up, I finally answered. "Hello," I said, my voice sharp with annoyance. A low inhale, then a whisper from the other side.
"I see you."
My entire body went cold. I sat up in bed, gripping my phone so tight my fingers hurt, and asked, "Who is this?" But the call ended. The next morning, I checked the locks. Everything was secure, or so I thought. But something felt off, and Juno, my cat, knew it too. She is staring at the front door, her tail puffed up like she saw something I couldn't, so I peered through the peephole, but the hallway was empty. And then the messages started coming. Thick, unmarked envelopes. No name, no return address, just pictures of me, walking to work, grocery shopping, sitting in my favorite cafe, reading. Someone had been following me, watching me, documenting my life like some kind of twisted scrapbook. But the one that made my stomach drop is a picture of me, sleeping in my bedroom taken from my bedroom window. Someone had been outside my window, on the 3rd floor, watching me. I went to the police. They took a report, but there wasn't much they could do. No forced entry, no threats, just a, "We'll keep an eye on it." But I felt, that someone was always watching me. I started changing my routines. I took different routes home, avoided my usual spots, even asked a coworker to walk me to my building a few times. It didn't help. The feeling never left. And worse, the phone calls became more frequent. I stopped answering, but that only seemed to make whoever it was more persistent. The silence was no longer just breathing. Some nights, I heard soft laughter. Others, a distorted recording of my own voice saying, "Hello? Who is this?" One night, Juno's frantic meowing woke me up. I glanced at the clock, 2:53 a.m. I was about to shush her when I heard something in the living room. A soft shuffling, careful, deliberate. Someone was inside my apartment. I stopped breathing. My phone was on the nightstand, but when I reached for it, I knocked it to the floor with a loud thud, then the shuffling stopped, and my ears strained in the silence. My heart pounded so loudly, I was afraid it would give me away. And then, I heard it. A floorboard creaked. I grabbed the closest thing, a metal lamp, and crept toward my bedroom door. My fingers trembled as I twisted the knob, opening it just a crack. There, in the dim glow of the streetlight filtering through the window, stood a man standing motionless and watching me. A blank, expressionless mask covered his face, and his hands hung at his sides, completely still. Then, slowly, he raised one and waved me. I didn't think. I grabbed the lamp and threw it at him, so I ran straight for the window. I didn't care that I was on the 3rd floor. I had to get out. I pushed the window open just as he rushed toward me. A scream tore from my throat, then darkness. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed. A nurse told me a neighbor had found me unconscious in the alley below my apartment. I had broken my arm and suffered a concussion from the fall. The police had searched my apartment but found no signs of forced entry. Nothing stolen, nothing moved. Except for one thing. On my nightstand, neatly placed, was a single photograph. A picture of me lying in that very hospital bed, taken while I was asleep. I moved out of that apartment the next day. I packed my things in a frenzy, too afraid to stay another night. My dad drove 4 hours to help me move, and even he, usually calm and rational, admitted something about that place felt wrong. I left the key with the landlord and didn't look back. But the fear never really left me. Even now, in a different city, in a new apartment with double locks and security cameras, I still wake up at 2:53 a.m., heart pounding, convinced I hear something just beyond my bedroom door, and sometimes, when my phone rings in the middle of the night, I don't answer because I already know what I'll hear. My name is Rachel, and I know what you're thinking. This is just another one of those haunted house stories. But I swear to you, this is different. What happened to me wasn't a typical ghost haunting or some tragic accident that created an angry spirit. No, this was something far more sinister, something I couldn't even begin to explain. It all started when I moved into the old house on Maple Street. It wasn't much, just a decaying structure on a quiet suburban road, but it was affordable. I had just broken up with my fiancé, lost my job, and was in desperate need of a fresh start. The house was cheap because it had been vacant for years, and the previous owners were, well, they weren't exactly around to explain why. At first, the house felt empty, not in a ghostly way, but in a way that felt almost too quiet, too still. The air had that thick, musty smell that you get in old places, damp and dusty, but nothing out of the ordinary. I unpacked, made myself comfortable, and started getting used to the sounds of the house, the creaks of the floorboards, the occasional groan of pipes, the wind whistling through the cracks in the walls. But something was wrong in this place. It started slowly, so slowly that I thought I might be imagining it. The doors would creak in the middle of the night, not from the wind, but from something else. I would hear faint, almost imperceptible footsteps in the hallways when I knew I was the only one there. The kind of footsteps that didn't quite belong to anyone, the kind that left a lingering unease in the air. The house was unnerving, but I tried to brush it off. It was an old place, after all. Old houses creak and moan. They have their quirks. But it wasn't the creaks or the footsteps that made me uneasy. It was something more. One evening, after a long day of unpacking and sorting through boxes, I went down into the basement to check the furnace. The basement door was strange, heavy, and old, and when I opened it, a cold, damp breeze rushed up to meet me. I hadn't been down there since I moved in, but I knew I had to make sure everything was in working order. The stairs creaked underfoot, the air was thick, and the walls were covered in peeling paint. That's when I saw it. At the far end of the basement was a door I hadn't noticed before. It was tucked behind a stack of old boxes, as if it had been hidden on purpose. The door was different from the others. It was heavier, made of dark wood, with rusted hinges that groaned when I touched them. The doorknob was brass, dull and worn from years of disuse. It didn't belong. I knew it didn't belong in that house. Curiosity gnawed at me. I reached for the doorknob, but something in the pit of my stomach told me not to open it. The air around the door felt thick, charged with something I couldn't name, but curiosity won. I turned the knob and pulled. The door opened into complete darkness. It was as if the space behind it didn't exist. There was no light, no depth, just an endless void. I stepped back, my heart pounding. I don't know why, but I shut the door again, locking it behind me, as if that might somehow protect me from what was hidden inside. That night, I couldn't sleep. The house felt alive in a way I couldn't explain. Every creak, every sigh of the walls sent my heart racing. It felt like something was watching me. I kept thinking about that door in the basement. What was behind it? Why did it feel so wrong? And then the dreams started. They weren't nightmares. They were worse. I dreamt of standing in front of that door, my hand reaching out to turn the knob. But every time I touched it, a voice, low, guttural, almost a whisper, would call my name.
Rachel.
It would say, dragging the syllables out like a slow, painful breath. I would turn, and in the shadows, I would see a shape, a figure. But it was always just out of view, always just beyond my reach. And no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't move. I couldn't escape. And when I woke up, I was drenched in sweat, heart racing, with the distinct feeling that someone had been standing next to my bed, watching me. The whispers didn't stop. They started during the day. In the middle of my work, I'd hear faint, indistinct whispers in the corners of the room. They'd stop when I focused on them, but I could feel them lingering, just at the edge of my hearing. One day, unable to take it any longer, I decided to open the basement door again. I knew it was a mistake, but I couldn't help myself. I descended the stairs, my footsteps echoing in the quiet. The door was still there, standing as it had before, waiting for me. I grabbed the doorknob, turned it, and the door creaked open. This time, the darkness felt different. It wasn't just empty, it was alive. The air was thick, dense, like I was breathing in something heavy, something suffocating. As I stepped inside, the floor beneath me creaked with a weight that shouldn't have been there. And that's when I saw it. The mirrors. Hundreds of mirrors lined the walls, broken and cracked, arranged in odd patterns that made no sense. They weren't old or dusty. They looked new, pristine, and they reflected something that wasn't right. I saw myself in every one of them, but the reflections weren't the same. In some, I was smiling. In others, I was crying. But in every one, there was something wrong. And then I saw her. At first, I thought it was just my imagination, a trick of the light. But no, the figure was there, standing behind me in the reflection. It was me, but it wasn't. Her eyes were hollow, black, her skin stretched tight across her face in a grotesque grin. She stared at me, unmoving, but I knew she was watching. I spun around, heart hammering, but the basement was empty. I turned back to the mirrors, and there she was again, in every reflection. Her smile grew wider, more twisted. That's when I realized it wasn't just the house that was haunted. It was me. I ran out of the basement, slamming the door behind me, but the feeling didn't leave. I could feel her, watching from every reflective surface, mirrors, windows, even puddles of water. And when I closed my eyes, I could still see her, standing in the dark, waiting. That night, I locked all the windows, bolted the doors, and sat in the center of the living room, staring at the walls, waiting for something to happen. I should have left, but I couldn't. The house had a grip on me. And that night, I heard something new, a faint scraping sound, like nails on glass, coming from the basement. I didn't go down to check. The next morning, I packed my bags and left. But when I went to the car, I saw something in the rearview mirror. Her face, twisted and grinning, and in the reflection, she whispered,
"You can never escape me."
I thought I'd left her behind, but I was wrong. She's still with me. Every mirror I pass, every reflection I catch, she's there. And every night, I hear that scraping again, nails on glass.